Rightio, so we're now going to do the FTSE with Ash for mine, an unusual chart. I don't associate regional periods of range with the FTSE. I'm a bit of a believer that it tends to move a little bit this one. But on the MT4 chart that I've got, still inside the range of the 16th of June. Bar.
Yes, it is in a bit of a range as it kind of decides what's going on. And it's an interesting dynamic, really, with investors right now, because the recession fears are building. And I guess, market participants are pretty much, they're hoping for the Fed just to kind of give them some relief. They just want the Fed just to back off a little bit and give them the chance for the recession just to go away a little bit, you know. So let's have a quick look at the fundamental data and what's going to happen over.
Before you do too much more, do you mind, mate? Boris Johnson's resignation to the market was completely priced in, just no reaction, basically, right?
I guess you could see it that way. I mean, it's very difficult to know what ended up being the main focus there, because Boris Johnson, yeah, he resigned, and I've got to say it shocked me, because I was speaking to Geoff and he said there's no way he's sticking around with this one, but he survived so many other things that I thought he may well survive this one. So I think it did take everybody a little bit by surprise. But I think ultimately the broader picture is much bigger than whether Boris Johnson resigns or not. So usually that would have some kind of impact. But I think that there are other things that are really going on that skew the picture a little bit. I think it will ultimately put the pound in a bit of strife. And that's why I think the pound is worth staying away from right now, because you look at that particular announcement and you think, well, that's going to move the market. One way or the other is going to move the market, and it didn't. So why didn't it? Well, I think that adds a bit of confusion, and you know, from that you kind of say it's better just to leave that alone and let it work its way out. You know, let's see if we can get some clarity. Then we'll go back towards the pound.
Right. Okay. Leave it to the FTSE moment. Let me take you off track.
No problem at all. So back to the FTSE. So the FTSE is actually a really fascinating index in this particular environment. If you were looking at growth, you look at the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ is a really good one when monetary policy is loose. People flood to the NASDAQ, as we saw, you know, after the COVID-19 bounce. It bounced hard, and it bounced for a long, long time, over doubled its price, because tech companies are able to get much more money. They're much more able to grow. They're much more able to do lots of R&D, and they do really, really well. Now, during recession, the FTSE is the one that is likely to be one of the worst performers. And the reason for that, and the reason for the NASDAQ doing so well, is the companies that make up the NASDAQ. The reason the FTSE could do quite badly here is the companies that make up the FTSE. It's much more connected to global growth because of the fact that it's got big oil companies in there and big commodity companies in there. So the makeup of the FTSE would suggest that if we are to get a recession, that would suffer quite badly, you know, because it is a cyclical. It's very, very attuned to the cycles of the business cycle. Very attuned to that. So if the business cycle is starting to weaken, the FTSE will potentially weaken. Now, what we've got is a Federal Reserve that the traders or investors are hoping are going to come out and say, look, maybe not 0.75, maybe 5, maybe 0.5, maybe net 0.75 next time, but maybe we can then start to move to 0.5. So the numbers have to reflect that. So really at this stage, numbers actually, if the worse the numbers are, in some respects, the better for the market, because the market wants the Fed to stop. And what we've really got sort of from last week was ISM Services PMI 55.3, not close enough to 50 for really to be that negative. Most significantly, unemployment rate still at 3.6 and average earnings still growing. That does not push the Fed towards a loosening policy. It continues for them to tighten. Next week is going to be significant, because next week what we got is the CPI data. Now, this will be watched on Wednesday, so watch out for Wednesday. I'm not saying the market won't move before that in potential anticipation, but that's the big day. Because if inflation is still hot and the unemployment data and the ISMs aren't particularly weak, then that backs up the Fed's position to go and attack price. They have a dual mandate, but right now they are focusing purely on the price and the fact that the price is getting so inflated everywhere. So they'll continue to go after it. So inflation comes out hot, bad for the stock market. And now we go back to the FTSE and the chart. This is the weekly. This is what's going on in the weekly. And if we look at the trend line here, and you could actually flip this to the monthly, but it's not so good. But this is the primary trend line here. That's the primary trend line that we saw in the FTSE. And if we sort of go back down to the weekly, we can probably tighten this up a little bit. And let's see if we can tighten it up sufficiently to get there. Probably can. We probably can. Maybe. No, I wouldn't be that comfortable with that. That's probably about as tight as we can get it. So this low that we saw not last week but the previous week is a significant level. That starts to break down. It could be quite significant for the FTSE, and it could be quite a lot lower. On the daily charts, what we've got is a bit of a mix, as you say, a bit of a kind of range. We're caught in this range. But look at these bars that are negative, very, very negative, the last bar there. This is very, very negative there. Yes, this one was quite positive, but all it did was push us back to these highs, and we're back down again. And then if we zone in here for the 4 hour, the 4 hour is suggesting that we are right on top of this area here. And this weekly pivot is going to change. So the weekly pivot might well be... the weekly pivot might well have moved below the price. We'd have to work it out. But we can see that there's definitely some resistance up here. There's an inverted head and shoulders, which should be bullish. But the data does not suggest that we should be looking for longs in the FTSE. The data suggests that we should be looking for shorts. But Wednesday's key. If Wednesday's CPI data comes in significantly lower, the market is likely to rally, because the market might start to assume that the Fed will ease back a little bit. If the CPI data comes in the same or higher, that's going to suggest further Fed action. That's going to suggest further choking of the economy. While the economy is doing okay, weakening, to be fair, the global economy is weakening, but it's doing okay. The Fed will feel comfortable that they can raise interest rates, not only once, but maybe another time quite aggressively. That's going to be bad for the FTSE. So as the market opens on Monday, check the price action, but be aware, Wednesday could turn things around. So if you are in a short and you've got some profit in the bank by Wednesday, my suggestion would be try and get stops at break even, or at least reduce the risk just in case the market turns around hard. You want to try and remain in the trade, because if the CPIs come out strong, the market is likely to tank after that. So quite a big week, mate, but Wednesday's the key day.
Cheers, Mel. I put that weekly pivot into the market scan, 7155 coming up for the FTSE. You just got to click the weekly pivot button on the market scan. It gives you that number. So right in the middle of those current bars. It is a big week, isn't it? I think it's going to be another one of those things. It's really cool, isn't it, Ash? You know, we can do these shows, and there's times where you sit here for month after month and you say, look, there's not much going on. Be patient, wait for opportunities. And this week, we're in a period now where every week there's something going on. There's opportunities. And while the FTSE might be ranging, other stuff is trending. We've seen some big US dollar moves, some big moves in things like gold quite quickly. And some really good opportunities out there for those that want to take them. And again, one thing about the FTSE, Ash, I actually don't remember the last time I saw the FTSE sideways for 3 weeks. I can't think off the top of my head the last time I saw that happen. It's quite unusual. And I'd expect it to bang out of there in some stage and with some meaning, you know?
Yeah, absolutely right. And with the FTSE, the other thing that everybody needs to check is oil and copper, because of as I say, the companies that are weighting the FTSE, Rio Tinto, Anglo America, Glencore are the sort of mining stocks. Then you've got Shell and BP, big players. So if you see the oil market come off and copper come off, which we've seen recently, you know, we're looking at oil just starting to show some potential weakness here, particularly on the daily chart. There is this little breakout point here. So if oil is coming off, then the FTSE is going to weaken as well. Copper has also had a bit of a problem as well recently. Watch those charts as well to get a pretty good idea and understanding of which direction the FTSE is going. Oil will need to get back into its upper range, really, for the FTSE to do well.
That trend line tells us big time for oil, right? You know, beautiful retest of that trend line. It's been support, it's been broken, it's been tested as resistance. And what happens Monday as we interact with that trend line will be blooming interesting as far as direction goes for the week there, right? Get a decent
Absolutely,
close,
and again,
you're pretty bullish and get a bounce off that, and all of a sudden you're looking at, you've got lower lows and lower highs, and a trend line holding, you're starting to look pretty seriously at trend change, right?
absolutely right, mate. And Wednesday's pivotal again for the oil market. Wednesday's pivotal, CPI data. All this stuff is interconnected. So the CPIs on Wednesday, I would say, are pivotal for most people that are trading this week. I would say that Wednesday's number is going to be pretty important.
I couldn't agree with you more, mate. So cheers for that, mate. Thank you very much. And with that, we will wind up the analysis part of today. Remember that next week, Linker and Orlando will be joining us, so make sure you join us for that. Linker on trend trading, Orlando on the US dollar, perhaps the most fascinating topic of them all at the moment. So join us same time next Sunday. We will see you then. To Alexis on fundamentals, to Lloyd on currency strength, to Ash on the FTSE. Thank you very much for your time, and to all of you who've joined us in the room, thank you. Those that have joined us on social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, welcome along. Have a great week. And remember, guys, stay calm and make good decisions. If you do that, things do work out for you in the long run.